What if I told you there was a different way to get citizenship? One where you didn't have to spend time on the ground. You didn't have to go to the country at all. In fact, still gain residency, still gain citizenship, and not for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hello and welcome back to the Traveling Report. Today we're going to go over paper residencies and how paper residencies actually make a lot of sense in terms of how operational efficiency and structural consistency works. Now, there's no guarantee for paper residencies, and many people will say that you probably shouldn't rely on them. And I agree with them to some extent. However, there's no problem with stacking paper residencies and hoping that you have the chance to get a passport. And so I'm currently here in Moldova looking at the company formation route to get residency in this beautiful country. And I can tell you that after 5 years of renewals, which can be done remotely in some certain circumstances, 10 years of additional renewals on a permanent residence, you can get citizenship if you learn Romanian, which, unlike a lot of the citizenship by investment people and, people who are trying to upsell you on these programs, I truly believe you should learn the language of the country that you are trying to become a citizen of, because I believe that it's important to connect to other people in the country, and it's really hard to connect with other people in the country that you claim you're a citizen of if you don't speak the language. And so I'm learning Romanian, I'm learning Russian. While I'm not perfect, many people here respect that I'm at least trying, and that's really all I can ask for. In Moldova, the national language is, of course, Romanian, and it's the native language of about 84% of the Moldovan population. Certainly, it's better if you utilize a place that is, easier perspective language. Although, that said, there is some level of leniency towards language integration for citizenship, especially in the Balkans. Now, I wouldn't consider Moldova to be a part of the Balkans, but it's an extension of the mentality of the Balkans. And so it creates somewhat of a ideal balance, I suppose, for ease of bureaucracy and obviously paper residency. Another option, I have my necklace on right now, is Albania. Albania is a paper residence country, as there are no days tests in Albania that are strictly followed. That said, it's more up to the immigration officer's discretion, and especially in Albania, you are at risk of an immigration officer having a bad day. There are ways to get around this, however, I cannot really go over them. I cannot truly, make any distinction on what you should do. However, if you're looking for that distinction, feel free to book a one-on-one call with me down in the description down below. I would love to give you some advice on your perspective ideals and your perspective findings that you could potentially have in these countries. Essentially, with Moldova, with Albania, you're looking at a very different perspective to deal with, because in Albania it's a lot less formal. In Moldova it's formal to some extent, but still lenient. And that's the biggest difference you'll have to deal with per country. A lot of what is going on in these countries is that their definition of residency is more based on integration into society rather than strict days tests. And I think that that's something that's nice. Of course, you have more ability to deal with these tests as like a baseline and following the rule of law and so forth. However, strictly following the rule of law, you'd have to spend 183 days in country. And for people like me, or perhaps another global entrepreneur, spending 183 days in a country is difficult. Now, I'm going to hopefully do that within the near future, as I do have countries that I enjoy spending time in, and I am looking to create a family. However, that creates, a very interesting dynamic of potential that you can utilize. Of course, if you are interested in me ranking the citizenships that you can get through paper residency, feel free to comment down below. There are some countries I cannot talk about due to either political issues with those countries or international law issues with those countries, and so I would have to keep those out of it. But other than that, it is something that I could do. Of course, I'm more than happy to do it, but it is an interesting thing to think about, is going to a country, getting a residency, spending time in the country is not necessary to get citizenship, and you create sort of a difference in your citizenship pathways. Now, I would recommend getting multiple residencies at once, as the clock ticks down on each simultaneously. And so you can stack, 10 paper residencies, which, yes, there are over 10 countries that do paper residencies at once, and create a very high level, high turnover citizenship portfolio. And even if you get 3 or 4 of them, well, that's 3 or 4 citizenships that you wouldn't have gotten in any other way. And these places you can set up and go through them by essentially spending zero or minimal time, and it's not that expensive, really. It's a few $1,000s a year, and you get citizenship, which is not something that many people think about. And especially if you're like an American, it's surprisingly easy to get citizenships in some countries, as you are considered to be priority. And while many of the citizenship gurus will say, oh, America's dying, no one likes America anymore, not really. I mean, America is still liked. It's just not as heavily dominant anymore. However, yeah, again, if you are looking for a paper residency or things like this, feel free to comment down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. With that said, I appreciate your time watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like. If you really liked it, feel free to share. If you want to join me on this journey to globalization, feel free to subscribe. This has been the Traveling Report, and I'm off.